All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming in. Um, this is getting started with SCA Equestrian. No horse necessary. Um, I am Bantiarna Fionnghuala inghean Ghearailt, of Barony of Twin Moons in the Kingdom of Atenveldt. Um, and yeah, so I guess let's just jump right into it. Tell you a little bit about my background in the SCA. I officially started participating in the Barony in spring of 2022. I say officially because I had learned of the SCA about 15 years prior. I just had never gotten into it. Going to college, back and forth between college and here, made that difficult and everything. Um, but so I got started in 2022. By fall of that year, I hadn't really found my niche and where I wanted to actually do stuff. So I was like, I don't, this SCA thing's cool, but I don't know if I really want to keep going. And then horses, horses happened. And yeah, so at the time that I had started, the Atenveldt equestrian community didn't exist. It has gone through many phases. But uh, in 2022, we didn't have anything, at all. Uh, in October of that year, um, one of my very good friends now, was like, I want horses. I want to do stuff with horses. I don't have a horse, but I know people with horses. Um, so they're like, let's have a meet and greet. And that literally directly affected if I stayed in the SCA or not. That also brought in other Scadians, because their their horse friends were not in the SCA at the time. Um, but yeah, so the equestrian community here in Atenveldt, it's directly impacted, not only me staying in the SCA and also finding other niches like scribal, like heraldry, um, and actually being willing to go out to archery because that's when I get to see people. I also It's been a lifetime low-key dream to own a horse. Um, Kind of like a bucket list thing, right? Um, the horse you see behind me, this is my horse because of the SCA. Our KEO is phenomenal and has a lot of connections within the equestrian community and was able to find find me a horse. Um, his name's Ruridon. That's not the name that he came to me with. That is his SCA name. In the barn, we just call him Rue. And he is a 21-year-old, half Arab, half Dutch warm blood, who is dressage trained. So he has that dressage under his cinch, and he can help me with doing the ride before the prince and all of that as well. And not I'm not new to horses, but I'm still learning a lot. So he's a really great starter horse for me. And that's all because of the SCA. So some stuff to know about. I'm gonna say amateur equestrians, and I'm saying amateur kind of in parentheses there. Um, but equestrians in general, we like horses. Like I said, the moment I heard the word horse, with SCA stuff, years forward, I was like, what's going on? What's horses? What? Like, scribal stuff. I don't really understand it. I don't really know what's going on. Oh, heraldry, that's a lot of work. Do I really want to do all that work? But oh, horses? What? Yes, and horses is a lot of work. Horses is a lot of things that I don't know. Um, but yeah, so an equestrian doesn't have to own a horse. You don't need to own one to be an equestrian. Equestrian is really just a fancy term for somebody who likes horses. It's related to horse riding or a rider performer on horseback. But even within that definition, you notice it doesn't say horse owner. Nowhere in the actual dictionary definition does it say horse owner. Um, And for SCA purposes, the equestrian community is definitely so much more than just horse owners or than just riders even. It's people who love horses. It's people who they like the idea of horses, but they might not actually have much practical experience. I came into it with, I don't know, a few years of riding lessons back in like high school. But I hadn't really done any riding for, gosh, over like 15, 20 years maybe. Um, so, and there's other people in our community who don't really know anything about horses. They might not have even been around a horse before, or they might have been around a horse and had a really bad experience that put them off to horses. We had several members of our populace that were like, well, I got bit by a horse once, or I got stepped on by a horse once, or, what have you. And they heard that we had equestrian. They're like, let me see if I can face that fear this time. The horses will mostly be over there. I have Scadians to talk to. I'll be okay. And they came out, and they're some of the greatest people on our team because they have faced their fear and they've continued on, not only with and that's a vital, vital member of the community. I'm hoping that I'm not losing my internet here. Okay.
You
Um,
muted out for a second for me.
oh no. Okay.
So if you'll repeat the last maybe two sentences.
I, I don't remember what those two sentences were.
All
Let me
right.
just go off of my handout here. Let's see here. A person who likes horses may not consider themselves an equestrian, or even equestrian community material. But all of our populace members who have been able to come out, and they continue to come out, they're equestrians, even if they don't know a whole lot, even if all they do is they come out, groom a horse, and then chat. They're in the equestrian community. They're doing the thing, and that's what matters. Um, Now, I mentioned the amateur. I'm going to mention now the experienced. And I'm going to use quote marks around experienced. They love to find new challenges. And I say quote marks around experienced because I personally don't consider myself experienced. Our KEO, they're experienced. They have been around horses almost all their lives. They've owned several horses before the horse that they have now. Um, they're definitely experienced. I'm not new. I'm not completely like I'm not a complete beginner, but I'm also not to their level. So that's why experience is in quote marks, because I do put myself into this point of I love to find new challenges. In the mundane world, horse owners and horse riders, which if you look at racetracks, you look at show arenas, a lot of the people that are riding those horses, they don't own the horse. The jockey doesn't own the horse. But they're no less an equestrian than that horse owner is. Um, but horse owners and riders, they usually specialize in like one or two things. Dressage, hunter jumper, working equitation, stuff like that. But they also like to try new things, especially if it's going to further their bond with their horse and give their horse some more life experience. Within the SCA, we do so many weird things that horses have never seen. Most of our unofficial practices and even into the official practices, once we got going with our equestrian group and actually became a part of the Kingdom of Atenveld, a lot of those practices were spent just waving swords around, banging a sword on a shield. We had a couple of our knights come out and just expose our horses to these really, really scary things. Because that's not something that they see in the real world. I should say in the mundane world, because SCA is real too. The games and activities that we do in equestrian, they directly relate to mundane activities. Ride Before the Prince is essentially dressage. I haven't had a chance to really like go through the exact routines yet, but he's going to do great. I already know that. He's level 2 dressage in the mundane world. He's going to love Ride Before the Prince. A lot of the stuff, like with the reeds game that we do, that's a lot of dressage maneuvers. It's a lot of just moving around the way that they normally would in any mundane routine. Um, but it's unique enough, like I said, with the clanging around of armor. Just putting a helmet on um around a horse. I mean, depending on the horse, that can freak them out. I was really impressed with Rue today because I've got like my lawn chair and I've got a TV tray set up here in his stall, and he's fine. He doesn't care. And just turned around to his hay and was like, whatever, screw it. Just feed me. I don't care. Um, Another horse, that would have freaked them out beyond measure. Like they would have been like across the property by the time class started, and I would not be here because I'd be chasing my horse. Um, but those are the challenges though that the SCA kind of we present for horses and their owners and their riders, that they want to do. They're like, oh, I can get more exposure for my horse with banners and flags and things. Yes, please. Um, but let's move on to the horses because horses are kind of an important part of equestrian. It's hard to have equestrian without the equines, right? So some stuff about the horses. They can be dangerous. The SCA requires special insurance and waivers specifically for equestrian, because of that fact. They have at their base, they're so much more than this, but at their base, they are a prey animal. They have that mentality of a prey. And we could kind of technically be considered predators to them. We can transcend that relationship, but at our base, that's what we are. That they're prey, we're predators. We do scary stuff that we might not actually be meaning to harm them. All we want to do is pet them on their face, but the horse might see that as, danger, danger, and back off and freak out about it. They they can also protect themselves if they feel threatened. And the problem with a 1,100-pound prey animal protecting themselves is they're big, and they can do serious damage. Um, Now that being said, though, they can also be amazing therapy. Even just like when I'm even mucking out the stall, that's that this is my happy place in the barn in his stall. Um, there's just something really cathartic about petting a horse, feeding a horse. Like I said, even mucking his stall, it's like I can zone out and I can do the thing and I'm caring for my animal and I'm happy. Um, Something about horses, there's just like a tenderness in there that it just melts your stress away. And that's, I think, the part of equestrian that we really want people to see. The whole dangerous thing, yeah, they can be dangerous, but that can be prepared for, and that can be a non-issue if the populace understands what's going on, the populace knows what to expect. The horse owners and riders, we're not just doing this for funsies. We know what we're doing. We know how to protect ourselves. We know how to help our horse be prepared, so that instead of freaking out and bucking and going crazy, they just maybe spook a little bit. Um, you know, uh, they're also a big investment, not only in finances, but in time and physical labor. I myself just went on to self-care at the barn, and it's a lot. It's a lot of work. Fortunately, I have somebody that can help with it, and I'm hoping to get a couple more people that can help cover some times that are really difficult for me. But I'm here a lot. It's very expensive. It's very time intensive hobby. It's probably one of the most expensive and time intensive hobbies, even considering every single discipline within the SCA. I mean, I know hard suit fighters, they have to buy or make their kits or whatever. Um, I spent $700 just to get his eyelid looked at because it looks like he got poked with a stick in his eyelid and got an infection. That's $700 just for that, not counting everything else that I had to pay for that month, for him for board and feed, you know. Um, so it's very expensive. So we're as equestrians, like we know this. We know that it's a lot of work. We know that it's a lot of money. We know that it's a lot of time. And we're totally understanding, like, if someone can't afford to do that right away, they can't afford a horse, they can't um, afford to take the time to own a horse. That's okay. You don't have to own a horse. Come out to our practices and uh, meet our horses, learn about our horses, maybe get some saddle time if we have the time. That's fine. We're perfectly fine with that. And it's a little it is a challenge, but the important thing is that they're willing to learn. If they're willing to learn, horse ownership is a non-issue. Um, did I just Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I thought I skipped something, but I actually have this in here twice. That's okay. All right, so some stuff to know about SCA Equestrian. As I mentioned, they Equestrian requires special insurance policies and waivers separate from everything else. It's very, very similar, honestly, to um, the golf cart uh, insurance and waivers and everything that you have to have for golf carts. It's just for horses. Um, and you have something alive with its own brain and its own thoughts that it might not think the same way that you are at the time, but that's okay. Um, so equestrian activities, they're also very restricted by location. Here in Twin Moons, um, pretty much all of our city parks, except for like maybe two, and I might be being really generous with that number, um, they don't allow horses at all. The one that we do fighter practice at, I'm never going to be able to bring Rue. As much as I might want to, and as much as I might want to have him included in our fighter practice nights and like the quarter moon courts, I'm never going to be able to if we're doing it at the park that we're at. Because yeah, I know, buddy. It's rude, huh? You looked over at me. That's great. Um, so that's kind of a barrier. The fact that you have to have um, a specific location with the insurance on it. Um, some people they can't go to stuff like that. Um, but there are things that we can do. There are some things that we can do. So I have in the handout, excuse me, I'm cold. I should have brought my cloak. I thought I was going to be warm. I forgot I'm normally like mucking out his stall right now, and I'm hot doing that. Um, so in the handout, there's a list of activities that you can do with and without horses. Um, I know again, equestrian you kind of can't have without the equine, but there's a lot that you can do with it. There are ANS classes and displays. In fact, at our Kingdom ANS Collegium this fall, one of our new equestrians who, mind you, this person has been an active SCA member for all of a year maybe, because the first time that she ever came out was at the equestrian meet and greet because she had a horse and she's like, "Oh, this sounds like fun. Let's see what's this about." And about a year later, she put up a display at the ANS Collegium of the barding that she had made for her horse specifically for the SCA, which is phenomenal. Now you can do displays, you can do classes. I have two other classes other than this one that are for event stewards, pedestrians guides, so like basically teaching the populace general do's and don'ts, etiquette kind of stuff around horses. Not only for just etiquette in general, but also for safety reasons. Like maybe don't touch the horse without asking the owner first, because that horse might not be happy to see you right this instant. So things like that are in there. We can also do uh classes about how to make barding, how tack works, how horsemanship works. There's a lot that can be done in the ANS side of things. As far as all of the other activities like sight riding, court procession, um, mounted heraldry, or town crier, obstacle or a challenge course. There's the ride before the prince. You can do all of that with real horses, but you can also do all of that with stick horses. And let me tell you, stick horse jousting, hilarious. I love it. We did stick horse jousting and let's see, jousting, archery, and combat with boffers on stick horses for an equestrian fundraiser at the beginning of the year, and everyone had a blast. No children. I think we had maybe one child play. Everybody else doing the stick horse events were all the adults. A lot of nights. It was great. It was hilarious. Everyone just had a blast doing it. And that's some ways that we're bringing equestrian to events where we can't have equestrian. So like at the fighter practice park that I mentioned, one thing that I might be able to do is bring stick horse stuff to the quarter moon uh court and do a fun stick horse thing just to remind people, hey, yes, we have equestrian and these are some of the cool things that we can do on a horse. Come out to our practices and meet our real horses. Um, yeah, it sounds silly and dumb, but it's great. Um, there's a lot of other mounted games and things, like I mentioned the reeds. There's also like quintain, um, rings tilting, and some other things. Those all, again, this is another barrier. Those all require special authorization. Um, and I'm going to talk about that actually right now. So, because my next bullet point is authorizations and marshals. So I talked about the ANS. The flip side of that is with the equestrian, there's also a lot of marshaled activities. The mounted combat, spear throwing, mounted archery, jousting, those all require special authorizations separate from a general riding authorization. That doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a new person who's never been out, that doesn't mean that they're not necessarily going to get saddle times at like a practice. Saddle time at practices, at least here in Aytonville, they're dependent on how much time and how many horses we have. So, we can at the very least, we try to get in a pony ride. So it's something you've been up on a horse. And for some people, that's big. That's huge for somebody to be able to just get up on a horse. And that's what we're here about. Like, we want to help get those big steps done so that you can take even bigger steps, like finding somebody to give lessons, finding a horse. I'm still tickled that I own a horse now because of the SCA. That's just um so yeah, so at events, at like a tournament or a war, camping events, those are gonna you're gonna have to have authorization, but at practice you don't. We can also, some of the other things that we can do at events that don't require authorizations, like I mentioned, pony rides. There's also like the meet and greet times, which we did up at Highlands in June. I think that was in June. And a lot of people came by to meet the horses, and they weren't doing anything, fancy, or they weren't prancing around or nothing. They were just standing there getting petted, and the people got to meet us and meet the horses and talk horse things. That's great. Let's see. So, um, while there are aspects of equestrian that can be considered ANS, it is, like I said, considered a martial activity. So that KEO, the Kingdom Equestrian Officer, they fall under the office of the Kingdom Earl Marshal. And marshals do have to be present at any SCA equestrian function where the horses are present. So, like, for instance, if we were to do a make stuff party, like we had a make stuff party right before our fundraiser to make the stick horses, our marshal was present at it, but they didn't have to be. We didn't have any horses. We were at a makerspace, sewing stuff together and putting the stuffing in the heads and everything. So they didn't have to be at that one. They just were because they wanted to make stuff too. So that's another way that we can also kind of get around that barrier, is have the ANS type things going on. And that's something that, if you just talk to your Kingdom Equestrians, they can tell you what things that they could bring out to a fighter practice or to an ANS thing. I also did mention the etiquette portion with my pedestrians guide. So one other thing with SCA Equestrian is that etiquette and safety. We do enjoy sharing our horses with people. I try to make it a point to always at least get one person some saddle time if I can at a practice. Sorry, the gator was going by again. He's freaking out a little. Yeah, it's okay, buddy. Because I did not have a horse at some point, and I was very dependent on somebody else giving me saddle time. So that's just my thing. Not every horse owner is going to want to do that. Not every horse is going to want to do that. Not every horse should be able to be doing that. Some horses are more well trained than others. Some horses freak out too easily, even when they're well trained. So the etiquette for the populace, they should be aware of. It's as much for courtesy as it is for safety. Not every horse is going to want a random stranger around them, just like we don't want to socialize all the time. Like, there are times when I'm just like, I'm done with people for today. I don't want to be around them. And horses are the exact same way. So that pedestrian guide, though, that covers all of that basic etiquette, safety guidelines. And I've got the link in the handout at the very end. And we are also planning to do a video that we can upload to YouTube. And we're already planning on teaching the class at various Atenveld events. So yeah, keep an eye out for all of that. So some stuff to know specifically about the kingdom's equestrians. Every kingdom, as I'm sure you all are aware, there's unique communities in every single one, and equestrian is no different. So they're going to be, Atenveld equestrian is not going to be like Ghearailt. We're not going to be like Outlands. Everybody has their own little groups. So I'm going to give you guys some homework. Get to know the equestrians in your kingdom. Find out what brought them to the SCA. Were they already in the SCA, like I was before they got involved in equestrian, or did they come to the SCA specifically because, oh, I can do cool, silly, possibly stupid things with my horse? It's a running joke with equestrians, is we want to do stupid stuff with our horses, partly just to antagonize them, but then also because they need that life experience, and we don't want them to freak out. So yeah, what brought them to the SCA? What got them involved in the equestrian part of it specifically? What do they do mundanely with their horse? Do they do dressage? Do they just go out trail riding? Do they do shows? Do they compete? Do they breed? Is it similar? Is what they do mundanely similar or different to what they do with the SCA? For mine, my thanks, buddy. My mundane and SCA equestrian time is very similar. Mundanely, I am still learning how to ride well. I can ride, but I'm not the best at it. I still have to work on my core strength. So a lot of what I'm doing mundanely is also going to be helping me with the SCA things. One of the things that I thought about when our KEO approached me about possibly getting this horse was he's good at dressage. I can totally do the ride before the prince stuff, even though I don't have any dressage experience. So now I'm starting to look into like, okay, what do I need to learn in order to do dressage? What are his buttons? How do I make him do the things that he knows how to do? I just have to train myself and remind him that he knows these things and he can do them. Whereas with our KEO, I think, what do they do? I want to say they do. It's not Western pleasure. They would kill me if they knew I was immediately thought of that. They do. I want to say like Western equitation or possibly ranch versatility. That's what it is. Ranch versatility. I knew it was a Western thing. So ranch versatility is not exactly that. It's kind of a little bit SCA-ish, but not really, because a lot of it is based in New World things, because it's Western style, whereas like with dressage, it's a lot older. So those differences are some of the things that make each kingdom's equestrians unique to each other. Some kingdom equestrians does your kingdom equestrians do they have classes that they have in their back pocket? Like we've got 2 now 3 back pocket classes that we can teach at any given event. We have several stick horse activities that we are happy to bring out to a event that is not horse friendly, or if populous members can't make it out to the horse friendly events. We have lots of stick horse stuff that we can have so much fun with. So yeah, so go to a practice if you can. Check out their practices, check them out at events, have that experience of a newcomer into the SCA, right? Because it's probably an area that you may or may not have been into, and find out, what interesting things are going on. There's different roles within the equestrian community. Some of them overlap, some of them don't. First role, the equine. Like I said, you can't have equestrian without equines. So horses, right? Obviously. Also included are pretty much all equines. Minis, ponies, also donkeys, mules, and zorses are in the handbook. You can use, like I said, you can use the hobby horses, the stick horses, but the actual horses is what makes equestrian and requires the special insurance waivers. Now, you may or may not see other livestock at the events, goats, camels, that sort of thing. I think the handbook even randomly mentioned elephants for some reason. Those are not, they don't fall under the equestrian, they don't fall under the KEO, although they're commonly housed in or near the same horse area that you would find the horses in. And then there's the horse owners, obviously the ones who own the horses and bring them out to the events. There's very, very rarely loaner horses. Some kingdoms, I've heard, and I can't remember which kingdom it was, but I feel like I've heard of at least 1 or 2 kingdoms that actually have more horses than they do people. I'm astounded by that fact, and I am very jealous of that. I think there is also potential for being able to rent horses, like if you find like a trail riding place or something like that where you can borrow horses from. There's that potential, but that's something that your kingdom's equestrians will know for sure about. Um, so yeah, and again, always approach the owners of the horses before you try to go pet, feed, groom, or ride, especially ride any horse at an SCA function. Like I said, not all horses are going to want to be on display and on the clock, as it were, at all times. Some horses are going to need their me time. I want me time. Um, so the next thing, riders. So some members of the equestrian community can ride a horse, but they don't necessarily own a horse. Remember, I was talking about like the jockeys and the show riders that they're riding somebody else's horse to do the thing, but they don't own that horse. So a lot of the times the riders are going to be the ones that they're taking lessons or they're working or volunteering at a barn outside of the SCA. They have worked with the KEO or the marshal at a practice, and they either are working towards or they have gotten their general riding situation. They also talk with the horse owners, obviously, to get saddle time at those practices so that they can get that. My brain just totally lost the word. Authorization. My goodness. There's also ground crew. Ground crew doesn't necessarily ride the horses. They don't necessarily own a horse, but they are very, very vital to the community because they are the ones that are handing up weapons. They're communicating the instructions or holding the horse while the rider is mounting up, adjusting something, doing things. They're resetting the equipment after, we've gone through and done our thing. If they didn't do any of that, we would have to be dismounting and mounting up all the time. And as a 5'2" person who owns a 16.3 hand horse, I really don't want to have to mount and dismount every single time I hit the little thing off of the pole. I I don't want to be doing it. Last thing, and one of the other very important parts of SCA Equestrian is our marshals. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of martial activities within equestrian. So as with any SCA martial activity, equestrian has marshals. Most of the time, this is somebody who has a lot of horse experience. They're likely a horse owner. Reason being for all of that is because the equestrian marshals are looking out for the safety of everyone, populace, riders, and the horses. Oh gosh. And so with your equestrians in your kingdom, they're knowledgeable. Uh, they're if you have a newcomer or even somebody who is already in the SCA, something I haven't mentioned really yet is as a chatelaine, you're generally dealing with newcomers, people who are brand new to the society, who have never been to anything. But what I want you to keep in mind too is that with equestrian, sometimes the new person that you're introducing to equestrian, they might already be a Scadian with several letters after their name. We have many, many knights in the Kingdom of Vatenveld who are very interested in learning about equestrian, but they don't know, how to get started in it. They can come to us. They can find their chatelaine and be like, "Hey, do you know anything about this equestrian thing going on?" So keep in mind that, it's not just the new people coming in, after an outreach or something. It's also the people that are behind you that you're supporting with bringing new people in. They're been around a while. Um, So for those new to the equestrian community, SCA Equestrian may or may not be enough for them to get started with horses. Like I said, we have a lot of knights that are super interested in it, but if all they're doing is coming out to equestrian practices, they're not going to learn enough to be able to go and do the knight thing that they want to do. You know, if they want to be able to joust or do mounted combat or something, they're going to have to take riding lessons. They're going to have to um possibly come out to a barn. And a lot of equestrians are happy to have people, hey, can I come and do barn chores? Yes, yes, you can. I will never say no to somebody who wants to do barn chores, especially if they are willing to learn and they're being responsible about it. If they're goofing off and having fun, that's not safe for the horse. So no, but if they really, really want to learn, I can see that they've got that maturity about them. Yes, I will likely do it. Will every equestrian? Probably not. I'm sure there's some equestrians that are very particular about who helps them with their horses, and that's fine. Um, the big thing is getting that experience and getting that knowledge out there. Um, not every kingdom has equestrian. I went and did something kind of crazy, and I went onto Facebook and found out as much as I could about the current active equestrian communities. So if you're not sure, look in the handout and the useful resources section. I have tried to list as many as I could get information on. That may or may not be a full list, but I've also included the link for the Facebook group that I got all the info from. So if you do not see your kingdom on there, hop into that Facebook group and be like, hey, is anybody from such and such kingdom here? And they can definitely help you. I got so many answers within like 2 hours. It was great. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it. My last thing is there I listened to a horse training podcast, and the trainer in there was talking about the three stages that she sees riders go through: the dreaming stage, the learning stage, and the balanced stage. Um, that sounded very similar to me of what we see in the SCA. You know, we see the dream that we all are questing for, the stardust. I've seen it in my own experience, both with horses and with the SCA. Um, we have an idea of how things are going to go, and the stardust makes everything all so magical, right? And then there's also the learning stage, where we research and we work hard and we learn to make and to do things. Everything from like learning how to fight, shoot a bow, how to make a beautiful scroll, how to ride, how to do the ride before the prince routine, where we're learning, 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 and all that dreaming state is just completely gone, right? Because we're learning. Um, then there's the balanced, where it's this teeter-totter, right, of balancing out that dreaming and that learning so that you can enjoy the magic, you can enjoy the stardust, while simultaneously learning how to make it work for you. And it's that balanced stage that I think that will help Chatelaines with retaining new Scadians, help older Scadians who've been here a while to find their, a new niche that they can get involved in. And it's definitely a stage that I'm currently working on. I find it very difficult sometimes just to be able to have the energy sometimes to go to SCA events. And so I'm looking to find that balance, both with the SCA and with my horse. So that's just something to think about and to remember, help people with finding that balance. All right. Was there any questions or anything? Okay. Well, so the handout looks like we posted it a few times. I'm assuming that the handouts will probably be linked with the recordings as well. But regardless of all of that, I've made my handouts into a living Google Doc so I can keep updating it. Um, I have several comments to catch up on with my listing here, so not I might not have it fully updated. But that's why it's a living document, so I can continue to do that. All right, well, I mean, if there's no questions, I'm right on time.